What's going on, everybody? Top 10 Pokemon back with another top Pokemon card auctions of the week recap. My apologies, folks. I've been super busy the past few weeks. I've only been able to get out one video a week lately, and that is the recap videos, so I apologize. I'm going to try to put out more content here in the next 1 to 2 weeks, so bear with me. In today's video, we'll be discussing several sales of alt art Pokemon cards. We'll also be checking out some absolute fire UMBREON card sales, both vintage and modern. And we'll be looking at the ugly business that is the Van Gogh Pikachu promo card, as well as the Metal Charizard from the Celebrations Ultra Premium Collection box. So stay tuned for all of that and more. A quick shout out to today's auction recap sponsor. It is lowpopping.com, your source for investment-worthy Pokemon cards. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. You need to go check out lowpopping.com. On lowpopping.com, they have an amazing variety of high-end collectibles for sale. Whether it's graded cards, graded video games, graded booster packs, vintage theme decks, autographed cards, there are just so many things for you to feast your eyes upon on lowpopping.com. They post new inventory each and every week, and I assure you there's something for everyone on there. And if you don't have the cash on hand, you can still make trades for that particular grail that you must have for your collection through Instagram or email, where you can also sell to them and make offers. And don't forget they have buy now, pay later options for you to take advantage of as well. So after this recap, please go to lowpopping.com. I will link the website in the description of this video. Check out what they have, and as always, let me know what you pick up. All right, folks, let's start this auction recap off with some alt art cards. Everybody loves alt art Pokemon cards. Here we have the Jolteon VMAX from the VMAX Premium Collection. This is kind of a Evolving Skies-esque promo, if you will. Here is the Jolteon VMAX that sold for $202 as a PSA 10, along with the Vaporeon VMAX that sold for $247.50. And then we saw the Flareon VMAX sell for $189.50. Here we have a Sylveon VMAX from Evolving Skies in PSA 10 sold for $305. The Glaceon VMAX sold for $340. The Espeon VMAX, which is from Fusion Strike, sold for $375. And then back to Evolving Skies, we saw two sales of the Rayquaza VMAX Alt Art, one for $635, the other one for $779. So the Rayquaza VMAX is doing very well this past week. Here we have the Umbreon V from Evolving Skies, sold for $385. And then the main attraction, folks, the Umbreon VMAX is doing better than it has the past few weeks, selling as a PSA 10 for $1,300, and then again for $1,345. So, man, this card is looking as strong as it ever has as a PSA 10. Up next, we have a couple of Charizards, some good, some bad. Here is the Charizard from the TCG Classic Collection in PSA 10 that sold for $510. Here we have a reverse holo Charizard from Evolutions that sold for $405, along with the regular holo Zard that sold for $1,290. And this card was creeping up for a little bit there, selling for $1,700, $1,800, but kind of came back down this week for around $1,300. And then we have the Metal Charizard from the Celebrations UPC. This card was very strong at about $1,800 to $2,000 for quite some time as a PSA 10. This week it dipped quite a bit, selling in auction for $1,430. And then we have the Pikachu Van Gogh promo card. This card barely dipped below $200 last week. This week it went even lower, selling as a PSA 10 for $177.50. And like I said a week or two ago, this card has been graded so many times in just 6 months, like almost 20,000 PSA 10 copies. It's insane. So we are seeing the price of the PSA 10 go down slowly but surely. A couple of XY cards. Here is a Mega Charizard EX from Generations in PSA 10 that sold for $415. Here's a Full Art Rayquaza EX from Roaring Skies that sold for $1,025. Here we have a Full Art Karen. This is a Japanese promo, the Best of XY in PSA 10 that sold for $1,875 this week. And then here we have a 25th anniversary Corporate History Deck Mega Mewtwo EX. This is a CGC10 Pristine example, sold for $4,117. And then on to some base set sales. Here is a first edition Alakazam Holo in PSA 10 that sold for $10,688 this week. Here is a CGC 9.5 first edition base set Blastoise that sold for $3,356. And then here, folks, is the OG Umbreon, the OG Moonbreon, as a CGC 10 Pristine, sold this week for $7,600. $7,600 for a CGC 10 example. Here we have a Shining Tyranitar from Neo Destiny. This is the unlimited copy that sold for $1,155. Here's a Japanese Crystal Lugia from Aquapolis that sold as a PSA 10 for $5,900. And then here's an English Crystal Charizard from Skyridge in PSA 10 that sold for $13,200. From the E-Series, we saw all of the legendary birds. Here's a Holo Zapdos from Aquapolis, sold for $615. The Holo Moltres sold for $810, and the Holo Articuno sold for $895, all as PSA 10s. Here we have a Japanese Gold Star Torchic in PSA 10, sold for $4,350, along with this Japanese Gold Star Trico that sold for $2,413. Here we have an autographed Gold Star Rayquaza. The card got a PSA 7 and the autograph was authenticated, and this card sold for $12,600 this week. And then on to this little number. Folks, this is a very low pop Holo Charizard. This is the Cosmos variant from Legendary Treasures. Very tough to get in a PSA 10. There are only 9 PSA 10 copies of this card, and it sold this week for $3,052. And a couple years ago, this card was a little bit lower pop, maybe pop 5, pop 6, and it sold for 5 figures back then. So in today's market, it sells for a little over $3,000, so quite a dip for this card, but it's still a beauty. On to some sealed product. Here is a lot of 12 Sword and Shield booster boxes from base set all the way through Silver Tempest, it looks like. So none of the Elite Trainer box sets were in this lot, but it sold for $2,275. Here we have a Sun and Moon Cosmic Eclipse booster box that sold for $955. And then lastly, we saw the Sun and Moon Team Up booster box sell for $1,975 this week. On to some interesting sales from PWCC. Here is a Shadowless Hitmonchan in PSA 10 that sold for $1,950, along with this Shadowless Ninetales that sold for an even $3,000. And then we saw a CGC 10 Gem Mint First Edition Ninetales from base set sell for $2,760. Here is a Full Art Mew EX from Black and White Dragons Exalted. Some of the very first full art cards came from the Black and White era. This card in PSA 10 sold for $2,130. Here we have a holographic Politoed from Legends Awakened. This is a Pop 1 card as a PSA 10, sold for $2,220. We have a CGC 10 Pristine Dragonite Holo from Expedition, sold for $2,640. This is also a Pop 1 card. Here is a Full Art Skyla from Boundaries Crossed in PSA 10, sold for $2,760 this week. We have a CGC 10 Pristine First Edition Dark Blastoise from Team Rocket set. This is a Pop 4 card that sold for $3,120. Here is a PSA 10 Black and White Promo Umbreon card that sold for $5,160. And then here is a BGS 9 Gold Star Rayquaza. This one was not signed, sold for $8,700 this week. Here we have a Japanese XY promo 20th anniversary Festa Pikachu card that sold for an even $9,000 as a PSA 10. And then we saw another PSA 10 copy of this card sell for $11,700. So I'm not sure what the difference was there between the $9,000 and the $11,000 card, but that's quite a difference in price. Here we have a Topps Chrome Sparkle Gengar card in PSA 10 that sold for $10,800 this week. And then here we have a Trainer Deck A Machamp. This is a non-holo card and PSA 10 that sold for $11,100. Here we have a Japanese Top Sun Blueback No Number Charizard graded a CGC 10 Gem Mint and sold for $16,800. This is a Pop 3 card as far as CGC 10s go. And then the final auction of the week would have to be this Reverse Holo Charizard box topper from Legendary Collection. This card sold as a PSA 10 for $27,000. Now, I, for one, am not a collector of jumbo cards like this, but I can acknowledge how difficult it is to get your hands on a card like this. You gotta open up a booster box to get it, right? And those booster boxes ain't cheap. So there you go, $27,000 for this card as a PSA 10. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. I really appreciate it. Please give the video a like and please be a subscriber if you're not already. We are so close to 30,000 subs, so I would appreciate that. Thanks again, folks. That's all I got for you today, and I'll catch you in my next one.